I sprung a leak. I sprung a leak in my compassionate container. I had an inkling of it, but then I became more sure of it just about a month or two ago. I think it was about a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the office, and I'm walking down the corridor heading towards the food pantry. And there in the office on my left, I heard this sort of loud, emotional voice. And I couldn't help but glanced in, and there I noticed there was our own Deacon Kinsey and this young lady who I vaguely saw behind the window. And she was mostly distraught, and I said to myself, oh boy, better him than me. Anyway, and then I went back to my office, and about 10, 15 minutes later, Deacon Bob comes knocking on my door, and he tells me, he looked a little bit exhausted. I said, been with this young lady, almost an hour, has been talking to me. He looked drained, and she's going through a tough time. She has cancer, he said, and I think he mentioned that she has like 6 months to live, and her boyfriend left her. They were living together and took everything that they had. She had a couple of kids, and she was really in a terrible, terrible way, and she needed some money. And he said to me, I think we ought to help her out. I think we ought to give her something. And I told him these two words: she's lying. He was startled by my response, and I was startled too that I said that as well. I didn't really see her, just heard her, but something didn't sound right. I know, because I've been duped too many times already. Trust me, I've been duped. And someone who has cancer, I said to myself, the voice sounded too strong. She looked too, even that little glance, looked too healthy. But I said, we may be wrong, and I felt sorry for Deacon Kinsey, and I know you're in a difficult position. Okay, we'll do something. We'll write a check, but I'm not going to give her any money. We'll write a check, and I forget where we said, and that ought to help. We'll give her something. He said, okay, and went, and he came back to me and said, well, she doesn't really want the check. She needs this money. I said, oh boy, now the flags are really waving. Okay. I said, okay, I'll call her bluff. I'll tell you what, she has cancer. She needed medicine. We'll tell her that whatever prescription she has, give me the name of her doctor. I'll pay for all her medicines. I'll talk to the doctor. Whatever she needs, we'll take care of it. Just bring it in. Just bring in the prescriptions. We'll be glad to take all those bills because we will help you out. He told her, and then I got to speak to her, and she said, okay, thank you, and I'll bring those prescriptions in. I'll bring my doctors. I'll be here tomorrow with it. I said, okay, great. We'll be glad to help you. I'm still waiting for her to show up. Now, why do I say that? Because what bothers me sometimes is this. Sometimes that becomes my reaction to anyone who I see now is, are they telling the truth? And I'm becoming a little bit hardened. And I don't want to be that way, I'm sure you don't want to be that way either. You want to find that balance. You don't want to be duped, but yet at the same time, right? You want to help those who need help. To have what Jesus had in our gospel, pity and compassion. So who do you feel compassion for? Who does your heart move out towards? We can't feel it to everybody. It would be too much. But is any situation, causes, people, groups, that, when you see that, it hurts. Because when Jesus had pity, it was the Greek word saying that he felt it in the pit of his stomach. The pang was deep. He was hurting. Excuse me, thanks. Let me show you one thing that moves me. In Adoration Chapel, we have your prayer request. I try each day to take that stack and at least to say a short prayer for whatever those prayer intentions may be. Some of them are just names. I'm not sure what their needs may be, but God knows, so leave it to the Lord. Others have a little more description to it, but there's one that really grabs me. It said, Lord Jesus Christ, heal Lauren's hearing. She's a small child and tries to talk. Please allow her cochlear implant to work, and with all your grace, give her the ability to fully hear and speak. This one hurts me. I guess because I picture myself, I didn't give the age, but I see a 5-year-old child or so who tries so hard to talk, to speak, and it's not working, the frustration she must feel. And I can imagine the mom looking at her daughter and feeling her pain as well, wanting her child to be able to hear and to speak. And is almost pleading, please, Lord, with your grace, may it come to pass. So when I pray this one, I get a little demanding with God. I say, okay, the others I know, but you got to take care of this little girl. You know? I'm not usually pushy, but this one, Lord, please. Because it hurts. Because there's an ache. So where do you feel your ache? What moves you? Interesting in our gospel, Jesus is moved to pity for this young man, this young boy. The son died. Typically for us, when we have someone who died in there, I imagine he's fairly young. We have pity for the family, of course, but even for the young man that died, we felt he didn't live out the length of his days. His life was cut short, and we have a little compassion, pity for that person. But here, not at all. Jesus really doesn't have pity for the son. It is only for the mother. He hurts for her, right? Because back in that Mediterranean world and during the time of Jesus, women had to be sort of under the guidance of some sort of male figure. No, women did have power back then, but they wielded differently in different spheres, but they had to be some sort of under a male. First it was their father, their brother, a husband, and then son. Okay? In fact, marriages were arranged, right? You didn't choose your partner. They usually was your first cousin they would marry. Okay? You marry your first cousin. It really, again, wasn't really anything to do with love. It was simply how to strengthen this family. Because there's no social agencies to help you, so therefore you had to have support, bigger family, more help. And that's what it's all about. In fact, a woman had no identity in a husband's family until she bore a son. Once you bore a son, oh, now we recognize you because you gave us a son. The son is important. Son is also part of her support. So now she has one strike, losing her husband. Now she's sort of on her own. But now the son, at least by having a son, that kept her connection to her husband's family sort of connected. Now he dies. They don't need her anymore. And she's a widow, and she's not, probably more than likely, she's not going to be able to marry again. Okay? It's not going to happen. No husband, no son. She's in a desperate way. So, well, what if she has daughters? Well, that's not much help either. They didn't really could do much for her. And plus, once they got married, they'd be now connected to her husband's family. They'd be leaving mom. Oh, boy, that's pretty bad, isn't it? You know what's interesting? The strongest emotional bond during the time of Jesus was between the mother and the oldest son. That's the strongest emotional bond. Now you know why Jewish mothers love their sons. It's from way back then. The weakest emotional bond? Husband and wife. Something about the son and the mother. And that's why they would pamper their sons. They would baby their sons. Oh, they showered affection, but now she loses it now. So you see what happens? She's left alone. And Jesus is moved compassion and pity for her. And so who does your heart go out towards? This past week we had quite a bit of rain, more than usual, especially this Thursday, the storms, right? I don't know what you were thinking when the rain came down. Maybe a little bit annoyed, frustrated, bothered. You have to drive in it, whatever you have to do. Maybe you're glad your grass got greener. I don't know what you were thinking. But I got an email from Tanya Gottside. She just retired as our guidance counselor at our school. And the first thing that came to her mind was this. We have to open up our cold night shelter for the homeless because they're getting drenched in this rain. I said, wow. That's what you thought when you looked out the window and you saw it raining? You saw this rain, you first thought, what about the homeless? Talk about compassion, huh? That her first reaction was, oh my God, what's going to happen to the homeless? That's a heart of compassion, isn't it? And often we think, well, if we're moved to pity, compassion, it's going to take money and time and energy, and I just can't do it. You know, not everything has to take time or money. Sometimes it's simply the little things that say that you notice what someone's going through. It's a word, it's a pat on the back, it's a letter, it's a thought that, hey, I notice and I feel for you. Brian was age 15, and the doctors told him quite bluntly, you have cancer, you have leukemia. And they didn't try to sugarcoat it, they told him bluntly, you're going to have to undergo chemotherapy for the next 3 years. You're going to go bald, lose your hair. You're going to be bloated. and there's a chance that it may not work and that you may die. This is a 15-year-old boy hearing this. He's in high school and going bald and bloated. You know what high school kids think of? Huh? Get my license, get my car, go out. I mean, this is my life and I may die. And so understandably, he went into a depression. His Aunt Florence heard about his predicament, and she contacted the florist, and they had him send him flowers. And with that, she wrote him a little note, a little card trying to cheer him up. But besides that, her note, there was a second note. It said, Brian, I took care of your order. I work at the florist. When I was 7, I had leukemia. I am now 22. Good luck. My heart goes out to you. Sincerely, Laura. And it said that when he saw that note from the stranger, he perked up. He said, oh. And all of a sudden, it wasn't the doctors with their expertise, the medicine, the hospitals. It was that note that turned him around. Right? Because we know the brain is very powerful. What the brain thinks, the body follows. Okay? And so all it took was this woman take time out simply to drop a little note. And guess what? My heart goes out to you. And I feel your pain. And that's what it takes sometimes. Not only money or effort, it's sometimes just that knowledge that we have noticed. Now, I don't know if the story's true or not. I've read it a few places, but it sounds like it could be possible knowing who it's about, but it's about our Holy Father, Pope Francis. It said one morning he woke up early there in the Vatican, and he stepped outside in the corridor, and there was this Swiss guard keeping post, standing, guarding and protecting him. And Holy Father, I don't know why, was a little startled, said, you've been here all night? He said, yes, Your Holiness, ever since I replaced the one before me. I see, so you must be tired. He said, I'm fine, Your Holy Father. Have you been standing here the whole time? Yes, I have. With that, the Holy Father went inside his room, and he came back outside, and he brought out a chair. He said, you must be tired. Please, have a seat. He said, no, I cannot, Your Holy Father. I cannot sit down. I said, why can't you sit? Because I have orders. He says, who gave you the orders? My captain, Your Holiness. He said, well, I'm the Pope. I said, sit down. And so he obeyed, and he sat down. And then Holy Father again went back into his room and came out this time with little bread and little jam marmalade. He said, you must be hungry. You must be hungry. Here. And before he could say anything, he said, here, bon appetit. And he fed him. I don't know if it's true or not. What I hear about Pope Francis, it sounds like it very well could be. But again, it highlights to us that compassion and pity doesn't take huge efforts, huge projects. Sometimes it's the littlest things that says, I notice what you're going through. A word, a thought, a note, a helping hand. So how's your compassionate container? Has it sprung a leak as well? Is your first reaction is, well, that's their responsibility. It's their fault. I have my own problems. Or do you allow yourself to feel, to sense what someone's going through? Now, we cannot feel for every problem situation. You become burnt out physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You can't. But I hope there's something, someone that touches you and leads you to do something on their behalf. For it become too hard, and if it doesn't, then like that son, you're dead. And this time you may not be able to be raised back to life. And in that case, I feel sorry for you.